Welcome to a new video lesson. The title of the lesson will be Factor with the Distributive Property. Okay, before we get started, please make sure you have a lined paper to write on. Pause the video and take this moment to write your name, date, period on the right-hand corner, and also remember to write the title of the video lesson on your paper. Okay, when you're ready, you can come back to the video and continue. Couple things to remind you. Please copy down everything that's included in the video. Those are example problems and all the work that I show. Okay? Remember to listen to the entire video. No music is allowed during video lessons. If you miss anything, if I am going too fast, then always feel free to pause or slow down so that you can review what you missed. Okay? Lastly, after you're done with the video lesson, you're going to do some practice problems. That's going to be online. I need you to copy down all the problems and show all work. Okay, that's how you will receive full credit for your practice problems. Okay? So, let's get started. Okay, first word we want to review before doing the actual lesson for today is greatest common factor, which is also known as GCF. Greatest common factor is the largest factor that two or more numbers have in common. Now, factor, we have reviewed this word. Factor is a number that you multiply. So the largest number that you multiply to create another number, right? That's the factor. And we're looking for the largest factor in two or more numbers. So let's look at some examples. The first example is to find the greatest common factor of 8 and 12. Now, factors of 8, there are many. Please don't write this down, but factors of 8, you can have 2 times 4, or you can also have 1 times 8, right? But generally, you don't want to use factors of 1. Okay, you don't want to use factors of 1. So I'm going to go with 2 and 4. So factors of 8 are 2 and 4. And now you can write this down. I'm going to erase the bottom part here. Now factors of 12, you can have 2 times 6, or you can have 3 times 4. And I'm going to go with 3 times 4 because guess what? We just found that they both have factors of 4 in common. So what is the largest whole number that is divisible into both 8 and 12? That is going to be 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 12 divided by 4 is 3. You can divide both numbers by 4. So, the greatest common factor of 8 and 12 is 4. Okay, let's look at the next example. Find the greatest common factor of 32 and 56. So let's start with 32. Factors of 32 that you can probably immediately think of are 8 and 4. 8 times 4 creates 32. 32 can be divided by 8, and 32 can be divided by 4. 56 can be divided by 8 and 7 because 8 times 7 is 56. So, the greatest common factor that they have is 8. Okay, here's the last example of greatest common factor. This time, find the greatest common factor of 21x and 56. So this time we're going to have variables. Well, it's going to be pretty easy. As you can see here just by looking at it, you know that they both have x in common. So x is going to be one of the factors in common, but there's going to be more than one. So 21x we know that it's when you have 21 multiplied with x. 21 times x gives you 21x, so these two are factors. And we know that 21 is 3 times 7, right? Now let's look at 56x. 56x is 56 times x. And now factors of 56 are 8 times 7. So they both have 7 in common. So that's one. And this time there's another one. They both have x in common. So for your answer, the greatest common factor of 21x and 56x is not 7 and x. You got to multiply the 7 and the x that they have in common. So 7 times x is equal to 7x. So for your answer, the greatest common factor of 21x and 56x is 7x. It's not 7 and x. They're not separate. You have to multiply them. Okay? Okay, so this is a diagram that I want to show you. Okay, if you want to copy this down, you may do so. So I said that today you will be factoring with distributive property, and I want to show you what factoring is. Previously, when we learned about distributive property, we multiply the factor by each term inside the parentheses. So we did 4 times x, which gave us 4x, and we did plus 4 times negative 5, which gave us negative 20. That is called expanding. When you're using the distributive property, it's called expanding. But if you're going backwards, let's say that you were starting with this, and there is no parentheses. If you're factoring, you're going backwards. The greatest common factor of 4 and 20 is 4, so that's why you take the 4 out. And now you got to figure out the numbers inside parentheses, which will be x minus 5. So if you're checking again, 4 times x gives you 4x. 4 times negative 5 will give you negative 20. And this is what we'll be working on today. So take a look at this here. Everyone should definitely write this. If you're expanding, you multiply each term inside the parentheses by 5. So 5 times x, you get 5x. 5 times negative 3, you get negative 15. That's expanding. Factoring is taking out a factor from each of these numbers, which will be 5, and finding the factors or the numbers that you multiply to get 5x and negative 15. So if you want to check your answer, do the distributive property, and you're still going to get 5x minus 15. Okay? So let's try them on our own. The question I'm going to ask you is to apply the distributive property to factor out the greatest common factor. So we have 35 plus 50. So now what is the greatest common factor of 35 and 50? What is the largest whole number that is divisible into both of these? So I could write that 35 is 3 times 7, and 50 is 5 times 10. I'm sorry, this should be 5 times 7. So we see that 5 is the greatest common factor. 7 and 10 don't have any factors in common. So I could write this. I could write 35 as 35, this number, as equal to 5 times 7. And I could write 50 as equal to 5 times 10. And of course, I am adding them, so I could put a plus right there. And if I want, I could put parentheses, but of course, by order of operation, I would have to do multiplication first anyway, so you don't really have to put the parentheses, but I prefer doing it this way. Now, if I want to factor out the greatest common factor, I want to factor out the 5, because this is a number they have in common. So let's factor out the 5. Let's take it out. So what I'm really doing is I am doing distributive property backwards. So if I factor out 5, then this is going to be 5 times, you're just left with 7, and you're left with 10, but you're adding them, so you need to plus sign in between. So you have 5 times 7 plus 10. This will be your answer. If you want to check, you can. 5 times 7 gives you 35. 5 times 10 gives you 50. So it works. Okay, another example. Let's factor out 70 plus 20. So let's find the greatest common factor. What's the number that they both have in common? Well, 70, that is going to be 7 times 10. 20 is 2 times 10. So the factor that they have in common is 10. So we could write 70 as 7 times 10. And we could write 20 as 2 times 10. And again, we are adding this time as well. And we're going to put parentheses around each. So then, if we are factoring out the greatest common factor, they both have 10 in common. Let's take out 10. Okay. So then, if I factor out 10, this is going to be 10 out in the front, and then inside the parentheses, you're going to have 7, because if you take out 10, you're only left with 7, and the second number you would have 2. And this will be your answer. Again, you can check. 10 times 7 is 70. 10 times 2 will be 20. Alright, so that's the end of the video. Please go back to anything if you did not understand or if I went too fast. Okay? Otherwise, you can end with the video and move on to your online practice problems. Please remember to copy down the problem and show all your work. Thank you.